Thank you for watching. This is Eman the Mass Media Group. We will be reading and reviewing parts of H.R. 1, aka the One Big Beautiful Bill, right after these brief messages. So we're going to be reading a portion of this bill today. It's over like 300 pages, so we're not going to read the full one, but I just want to concentrate on what's known as SNAP, which is the Food Assistance Program here in the United States, and how that may affect some of those who are actually on this benefit, and just in general, just to get some general knowledge, all right? So let's start. Okay, H.R. 1, 119th Congress of the United States of America, at the first session begun and held at the city of Washington on Friday, the 3rd day of January 2025. An act to provide for reconciliation pursuant to the Title II of HCON RES 14, House of Congress Resolution 14, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. All right, so today we're going to be going over Section 1, table of contents that reads, the table of contents of this act is as follows. So Section 1 says, Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. All right, so as you can see, we're actually going to be concentrating on Section A, which is going to be the nutrition part. So that's sections 10101 all the way to sections 10108. All right, so before we actually get started, if there's any portion of this bill you think we should read, go ahead and send an email to etmmediagroup@gmail.com, or just put it in the comments if you like, or if you think we should, read and review anywhere in this bill. All right, so let's get started. Title 1, Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. Subtitle A, Nutrition. Section 10101, Reevaluation of Thrifty Food Plan. In general, Section 3 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking subsection and inserting the following. Thrifty Food Plan. In general, the term Thrifty Food Plan means a diet required to feed a family of 4 persons consisting of a man and a woman ages 20 through 50, a child ages 6 through 8, and a child ages 9 through 11, using the items and quantities of food described in the report of the Department of Agriculture entitled Thrifty Food Plan 2021, and each successor report updated pursuant to the subsection, subject to the conditions that A, the relevant market baskets of the Thrifty Food Plan shall only be changed pursuant to paragraph 4. B, the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan shall be the basis for uniform allotments for all households, regardless of the actual composition of the household. And C, the cost of the Thrifty Food Plan may only be adjusted in accordance with this subsection. 2. Household adjustments. The Secretary shall make household adjustments using the following ratios of household size as a percentage of the maximum 4-person allotment. A, for a 1-person household, 30%, 2-person household, 55%, 3-person household, 79%, 4-person household, 100%, 5-person household, 119%, 6-person household, 143%, 7-person household, 158%, and 8-person household, 180%. For a household of 9 persons or more, an additional 22% per person, which additional percentage shall not total more than 200%. Allowable cost adjustments. The Secretary shall A, make cost adjustments in the Thrifty Food Plan for Hawaii and the urban and rural parts of Alaska to reflect the cost of food in Hawaii and urban and rural Alaska. B, Made cost adjustments in the separate thrifty food plans for Guam and the Virgin Islands of the United States to reflect the cost of food in those states, but not to exceed the cost of food in the 50 states and the District of Columbia, and C, on October 1st, 2025, and on each October 1st thereafter, adjust the cost of the thrifty food plan to reflect changes in the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers. Published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the Department of Labor for the most recent 12-month period ending in June. Reevaluation of market baskets. Reevaluation. Not earlier than October 1st, 2027, the Secretary may reevaluate the market baskets of the thrifty food plan based on current food prices, food composition data, consumption patterns, and dietary guidance. B. Cost neutrality. The Secretary shall not increase the cost of the thrifty food plan based on a reevaluation under this paragraph. B. Conforming amendments. Section 16 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Section 3U4 and inserting Section 3U3. Section 19 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Sections 3U4 and inserting in Sections 3U3. Section 27 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking Section 3U4 each place it appears and inserting Section 3U3. Section 10102, modifications to SNAP work requirements for able-bodied adults. Exceptions. Section 6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking paragraph 3 and inserting the following. Exceptions. Paragraph 2 shall not apply to an individual if the individual is under 18 or over 65 years of age, medically certified as physically or mentally unfit for employment, a parent or other member of a household with responsibility for a dependent child under 14 years of age, otherwise exempt under subsection D2, a pregnant woman, an Indian, or an urban Indian, as such terms are defined in paragraphs 13 and 28 of Section 4 of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. A California Indian described in Section 809A of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. Standardizing enforcement. Section 6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in subparagraph by striking clause 2 and inserting the following. Is in a non-contiguous state and has an unemployment rate that is at or above 1.5 times the national unemployment rate.
Contiguous.
Contiguous means sharing a common border or touching. Next or together in sequence. A California Indian described in Section 809A of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. Standardizing enforcement. Section 604 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in subparagraph by striking clause and inserting the following. Is in a non-contiguous state and has an unemployment rate that is at or above 1.5 times the national unemployment rate. And by adding at the end of the following definition of non-contiguous state. In general, in this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state means a state that is not one of the contiguous 48 states of the District of Columbia. Exclusions. The term non-contiguous state does not include Guam or the Virgin Islands of the United States. Waiver for non-contiguous states. Section 6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by redesignating paragraph 7 as paragraph and by inserting after paragraph 6 the following. Exemption for non-contiguous states. Definition of non-contiguous states, or state in general. In this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state means a state that is not one of the contiguous 48 states or District of Columbia. Exclusions. In this paragraph, the term non-contiguous state does not include Guam or the Virgin Islands of the United States. Exemption subject to subparagraph D. The Secretary may exempt individuals in a non-contiguous state from compliance with the requirements of paragraph 2 if the state agency submits to the Secretary a request for that exemption made in such form and at such time as the Secretary may require, and including the information described in subparagraph C, and the Secretary determines that based on that request, the state agency is demonstrating a good faith effort to comply with the requirements of paragraph 2. Good faith effort determination. In determining whether a state agency is demonstrating a good faith effort for purposes of subparagraph B, the Secretary shall consider any actions taken by the state agency toward compliance with the requirements of paragraph 2, any significant barriers to or challenges in meeting these requirements, including barriers or challenges related to funding, design, development, procurement, or installation of necessary systems or resources. The detailed plan and timeline of the state agency for achieving full compliance with those requirements, including any milestones as defined by the Secretary and any other criteria determined appropriate by the Secretary. Duration of exemption. In general, an exemption granted under subparagraph B shall expire not later than December 31st, 2028, and may not be renewed beyond that date. Early termination. The Secretary may terminate an exemption granted under subparagraph B prior to the expiration date of that exemption if the Secretary determines that the state agency has failed to comply with the reporting requirements described in subparagraph E, or based on the information provided pursuant to subparagraph E, failed to make continued good faith efforts toward compliance with the requirements of the subsection reporting requirements. A state agency granted an exemption under subparagraph B shall submit to the Secretary quarterly progress reports on the status of the state agency in achieving the milestones toward full compliance described in subparagraph C, and information on specific risks or newly identified barriers or challenges to full compliance, including the plan of the state agency to mitigate those risks, barriers, or challenges. All right, let's move on to section 10103, availability of standard utility allowances based on receipt of energy assistance. Standard utility allowance of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by inserting with an elderly or disabled member after households. Third-party energy assistance payments of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in subparagraph by inserting without an elderly or disabled member before shall be, and in subparagraph B by inserting with an elderly or disabled member before under a state law. Section 10104, restrictions on internet expenses. Section 5.6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by adding at the end of the following: restrictions on internet expenses. Any service fee associated with internet connection shall not be used in computing the excess shelter expense deduction under this paragraph. Matching funds requirements. In general, Section 4A of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking subject to and inserting the following: program established subject to, and by adding at the end of the following state quality control incentive. Definition of payment error rate. In this paragraph, the term payment error rate has the meaning given the term in section 16 state cost share. In general, subject to clause beginning in fiscal year 2028, if the payment error rate of the state as determined under clause 2 is less than 6%, the federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph for that state in a fiscal year shall be 100%, and the state share shall be 0%. Man, that was a tongue twister. And the state share shall be 0%. Equal to or greater than 6%, but less than 8%. The federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 95%, and the state share shall be 5%. Equal to or greater than 8%, but less than 10%. The federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 90%, and the state share shall be 10%, and equal to or greater than 10%, the federal share of the cost of the allotment described in paragraph 1 for that state in a fiscal year shall be 85%, and the state share shall be 15%. Elections. Fiscal year 2028. For fiscal year 2028, to calculate the applicable state share under clause I, or is that 1? Maybe that's 1. A state may elect to use the payment error rate of the state from fiscal year 2025 or 2026. Fiscal year 2029 and thereafter. For fiscal year 2029 and each fiscal year thereafter, to calculate the applicable state share under clause 1, the secretary shall use the payment error rate of the state for the third fiscal year preceding the fiscal year for which the state share is being calculated. Delayed implementation. Fiscal year 2025. If for fiscal year 2025 the payment error rate of a state multiplied by 1.5 is equal to or above 20%, the implementation date under clause 1 for that state shall be fiscal year 2029. Fiscal year 2026. If for fiscal year 2026 the payment error rate of a state multiplied by 1.5 is equal to or above 20%, the implementation date under clause 1 for that state shall be fiscal year 2030. Maximum federal payment. The secretary may not pay towards the cost of an allotment described in paragraph 1 an amount that is greater than the applicable federal share under paragraph 2. Limitation on authority. Section 13A1 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in the first sentence by inserting or the payment of disposition of a state share under section 4A2 after 16C1D12. Section 1016 Administrative Cost Sharing. Section 16 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended in the matter preceding paragraph by striking agency in amount equal to 50 per centum and inserting agency through fiscal year 2026, 50%, and for fiscal year 2027 and each fiscal year thereafter 25%. Section 10107 National Education and Obesity Prevention Grant Program. Section 28 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended by striking for fiscal year 2016 and subsequent fiscal year and inserting for each of fiscal years 2016 through 2025. Section 10108 Alien SNAP Eligibility. Section 6 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 is amended to read as follows. No individual who is a member of a household otherwise eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program under this section shall be eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program as a member of that or any other household unless he or she is. Okay, I think this is very important because there's a lot of misinformation going on right now about who's ineligible for this program and who's not. So let's see what this document says. A resident of the United States and either a citizen or national of the United States An alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence permanent residence as an immigrant as defined by Section 101 and 101 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, excluding among others alien visitors, tourists, diplomats, and students who enter the United States temporarily with no intention of abandoning their residence in a foreign country. An alien who has been granted the status of Cuban and Haitian entrant as defined in Section 501E of the Refugee Education Assistance Act of 1980. D. An individual who lawfully resides in the United States in accordance with a compact of free association referred to in Section 402 of the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996. All right, so let's just repeat that again. I'm not going to repeat all the eligibility, but let me repeat the top here. All right. No individual who is a member of a household otherwise eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program under this section shall be eligible to participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program as a member of that or any other household unless he or she is. All right. So basically a resident of the United States and below, okay? So basically, from my understanding, what this is saying is if you're legally here to be in this country, then you will, or you're eligible to receive these SNAP benefits. All right. So we're on blackdemographics.com, and let's look at this chart here. It says households participating in food stamps /SNAP by race and ethnicity. As you can see on the left here, we have 6.8 million white households receive SNAP benefits. 4.1 million black households receive SNAP benefits. 3.7 million Hispanic, 661,000 Asian, and 242,000 Native American. And the source is U.S. Census Bureau 2022 American Community Survey year estimates. Data are based on a sample and are subject to sampling variability. The effect of non-sampling error is not represented in these tables. All right, so I just wanted to mention also on this graph here, it has a percentage that states 26% of black households receive SNAP benefits. So according to this chart, actually blacks at 26% are the highest out of the Native American, which comes in second at 23%. Hispanic at 20%, Asian at 10%, white at 8%. So even though white households receive the most or have the most people receiving SNAP benefits, black, which we don't know which quote unquote black it is, or people who classify themselves, we don't know if it's black Americans, those who descend from U.S. chattel slavery here in the United States, or if it's people who've recently immigrated to the United States. Don't know, but anyway, in this case, they're saying that's 26%, which, once again, that's the higher or the highest percentage out of all the racial or ethnic groups in this chart. All right, here's an article from the National Association of Counties. The title of the article is The One Big Beautiful Bill Act and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What counties should know. All right. How do changes to SNAP affect counties? Counties in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. As the largest federal nutrition program reaching nearly 42 million households, SNAP is a foundational part of the social society net and has a significant impact on combating hunger and poverty in low-income households, particularly in rural communities. Counties are responsible for administering the program in 10 states: California, Colorado, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Virginia, and Wisconsin. These states represent approximately 34% of total participants, or 14.6 million people. In North Carolina, New York, and New Jersey counties must meet the entire 50% non-federal match requirement for SNAP administrative funds, while in California, Colorado, Minnesota, Ohio, Virginia, and Wisconsin, the counties share this financial obligation with the state. Only in North Dakota does the state entirely fund this requirement. All right, here's an analysis. It says benefit cost shift and payment error rates. Since the program's establishment in 1964, the federal government has fully funded SNAP benefits under the OBBBA. States with payment error rates above 6% will pay a cost share that covers 5 to 15% based on their payment error rate. States with a payment error rate under 6% will not be responsible for benefits. States may use either their fiscal year 2025 or fiscal year 2026 payment error rate to determine their required match for fiscal year 2028. For FY 229 and beyond, the match is based on the payment error rate from 3 fiscal years prior. Generally, implementation will begin in fiscal year 2028. However, if the payment error rate of a state in fiscal year 2025 multiplied by 1.5 is equal to or above 20%, the implementation date will be fiscal year 2029. If a state meets this criteria in fiscal year 2026, implementation is pushed to fiscal year 2030. Ultimately, states with the highest error rates will have delayed implementation. This provision raises major concerns for counties, with the potential of states passing penalties to county governments, even when local offices are fulfilling their obligations to track and monitor recipients and benefit payments. In terms of administrative cost shift, currently the federal government covers approximately 50% of the administrative costs for SNAP. The OBBBA reduces the federal contribution to 25% and increases the state and local government share to 75%. Wow. Starting in fiscal year 2027, we estimate that this cost shift could increase administrative costs for counties by approximately $850 million annually. The work requirements change. Obviously, we read that in the bill. It says under current law, able-bodied adults without dependents must work at least 20 hours a week or participate in qualifying programs to be eligible for SNAP benefits, and are limited to receiving SNAP benefits up to 3 months for failure to comply with these requirements. The OBBBA expands the definition of ABAWDs to include adults aged 18 to 64, an increase from the current range of 18 to 54. So, all right. So it looks like they're increasing the age once again. An additional 10-year difference there. So from 54 to 64, and those with dependents ages 14 and up. Furthermore, the legislation reduces the flexibility for states to waive ABAWD work requirements in areas with high unemployment or limited job opportunities, even if local economic conditions warrant flexibility. Under the expanded definition and less flexibility for waivers, more people will be subject to work requirements, increasing the administrative burden on counties. All right, shifting SNAP food benefit costs. Since SNAP was established nearly 50 years ago, the federal government has fully funded food benefits, while states and counties responsible for eligibility and benefit distribution have shared about half the administrative costs. The One Big Beautiful Act requires states with payment error rates above 6% to pay a share of 5 to 5% of SNAP benefits. The chart below illustrates how even changes to SNAP benefits funding could affect state budgets. All right, so we did read the 2020, I think it was 4 state share error chart here. This looks like, okay, so this looks like, I just had to double check before I started talking here. So this looks like a future prediction for each state. Very interesting. Okay. All right, so let's start with, we're going to read from Alabama to California, because I think we read from Alabama to California in the last chart. So yeah, let's read this one. Okay, start with Alabama in alphabetical order. A state share of 5% cost shift in fiscal year 2028 million, 6% to 7.99% error rate. That's $86. State share of 10% cost shift in fiscal year 2028 in millions, 8% to 9.99 error rate, $172. To state share of 15% cost shift in fiscal year 2028 millions, 10% or higher error rate, 258. So if I'm correct, that's 86 million, 172 million, and 258 million, starting from left to right. All right, we're just going to go to Alaska and read from left to right. 12 million, 25 million, and 37 million. Arizona, 100 million, 200 million, and 300 million. Arkansas, 27 million, 55 million, 82 million. And California, 615 million, 1,230. So I think that's what, 1 billion, 1.2 billion, and 1.8 billion, or 1844. If I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, let us know. Can put us in the comment if that's correct, but that looks like estimate. That's what I'm saying. Estimate. All right, these are estimates. All right, so increase administrative costs to counties. Okay. Let's go to this chart here. Let's read maybe the first 5. Start with California. Fiscal year 2024 total administrative costs at 3.5 million. Fiscal year 2024 federal match, 1 million? Yeah, 1 million, 1.7 million. County share of non-federal match, 28%. County share of fiscal year 2024, 50% non-federal match at 494. County share of fiscal year at 75%, 741. Increased cost to counties under new match, that's 247. I believe that's a million. I think that's right, 247 million. Colorado, 243, 121, 40%, 49, 73, and 24. Minnesota, 222, 111, 79%, 88, 131, 43. In New Jersey, 490 million. Okay, these are millions. 245, 100%, 245, 367, 122. And New York, 1,064, 532, 100%, 532, 79, 8, and 266. All right, so we're also on the USDA website here, and it goes into further explanation. It says payment errors. As part of the quality control system, FNS and states identify payment errors. There are 2 types of payment errors: underpayments and overpayments. Payment errors are largely unintentional and may be on the part of the state agency or the SNAP household. For example, the state agency incorrectly calculates a household's expenses, or a client forgets to provide the state with an update on their income. SNAP quality control process. All right, so as you can see, it goes from the state review to corrections, and then the federal review, then to the analysis, which then goes to, I guess, some type of calculation. I don't know, it's like a calendar or something like that. Each state agency starts by reviewing a select number of household case files each month. Collectively, states review about 50,000 cases each year. USDA conducts a second review of approximately half of the state cases. When a state agency identifies an error, they must make a correction by either reimbursing underpayments or recouping overpayments so that each household gets exactly what they are eligible to receive. Every June, USDA analyzes the final data collected from the states and uses that to determine national and state payment error rates. All right, so as you can see on the screen, this is some payment error rates for fiscal year 2024. I'll just maybe go over the first couple in alphabetical order. We have Alabama at overpayment of 7.3, underpayments 0.99, a payment error rate of 8.32. Alaska, overpayments 22.50, underpayments 2.16, payment error rates 24.66. Arizona 7.56, 1.28, 8.84. Arkansas 7.797, underpayments 1.59, payment error rates 9.56. California 9.01, 1.98, and error rate of 10.98. So Alaska has a very high payment error rate at 24.66, and California at 10.98. Let's see about some of these other who have a pretty high rate here. Looks like Alaska has the highest. So the average is probably looks like around 10. I could see, is that about right? Yeah, if you want more information on this 2024 fiscal year payment rate information, this document, you can go to the Food and Nutrition Service section under the U.S. Department of Agriculture and check that out, also known as USDA. Because the Amend Mass Media Group is headquartered out here in California, we decided to reach out to the California Department of Social Services, in particular their Public Affairs and Outreach Programs Department. They got back to us relatively quickly so we can include this webinar that they suggested that we look at and refer our viewers and listeners to watch. But we just definitely want to play a quick clip. And also, I do recommend that if you do have any questions in terms of social services in your area, in particular SNAP or Medicaid, because there's a lot of information or misinformation going on about this one big bill that may actually impact either you or your state. Definitely reach out to your social services. Once again, I'd like to give a shout out to our social services department out here in California, because they did get back to us relatively quick. Anyway, let's go ahead and play this clip and then we will come back and wrap it up.
Thank you so much. This is Jennifer Troya from the California Department of Social Services. I appreciate the focus of today's webinar on the profound impacts of the House Resolution Bill on the critical safety net programs. If you could go to the next slide, please. H.R. 1 includes significant changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP federally. We refer to it here in California as CalFresh. The bill will cut federal funding for CalFresh by at least $1.7 to $3.7 billion annually. As many as 395,000 Californians could lose eligibility for benefits, and the overall reduction in benefits may be $827 million annually. Before I dive further into the provisions of H.R. 1, I first want to acknowledge how incredibly impactful CalFresh is across the state and why the impacts of H.R. 1 are so devastating. Next slide. We know that here in our state, approximately 1 in 5 Californians face food insecurity. Next slide. This slide provides the timeline for when certain changes will take effect over the next 2 years. I want to pause to point out here that for the first stop on this timeline, the policies are effective upon enactment. However, we're still waiting for federal guidance. Our partners at the USDA Food and Nutrition Service have been clear that they intend to issue guidance with more details, including more information about implementation timing. They've not been able yet to provide us a timeline, but they have let us know they're working on it. As we receive information, we will be sharing it out with all of our partners. I want to emphasize that this means today, benefits and eligibility rules in California have not yet changed. We have not implemented these changes. At the moment, the program remains as it has been. Next slide. I will now go through.
We'll go ahead and put a link down in the description if you want to watch the rest of the webinar. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And we will see you next time right here on EMIN the Mass Media Group, your #1 source for reparations and news. Peace and reparations.